dealing with volatile organic compounds that tend to be more prevalent in the atmosphere when it's warmer. So coming out in the cooler time of the year, that actually would, in theory, decrease the amount of VOCs in the air. The other thing that could have influenced the study is that the wind was out of the north, the northwest, I believe you said? Northwest. Most of our citizens actually live on the west side and the north side of the compressor station, which would mean if the wind was coming in from the northwest, that it actually would have been blowing the emissions away from the town during that time. And so that would make me think that possibly these would be decreased, the blood results, urine results would have been decreased because of the nature of the temperature and the wind direction would have decreased comparative to our normal exposure, especially when we compare to, let's say, late spring, summer, early fall, when, you know, ozone levels, that kind of thing, are worse as far as your air quality across the state anyway. But with us having all these natural gas emissions, I would like to see you guys come back late July, August, redo the testing when the wind is blowing from the south, when we're all sucking fumes, and just see how it compares.
And we'd be more than willing to do that.
Thank you.
And I agree with you 100%. There, you know, that's one thing we say is limitation. The weather, changes in the weather and changes in temperature could cause different results. We found out about this in October, and we got out here as quickly as we could to find out what was going on. We had heard rumors that the gas operations were going to start cleaning up their acts. We really wanted to see what was going on as soon as we could. So that's why we came out in January, to respond to y'all's concerns as quickly as we could.
It's a baseline, but we need more studies.
And
the other question that I have is the 95th percentile as being normal for people across the United States. And that's just exposure. That is not necessarily a study of where the health effects come in. Is that correct?
correct, we can't use the blood data.
So health effects could be at that 15% mark as opposed to the 95% mark. And just for like an illustration, we'll use a little parable, right? If we're looking at a college class, a graduating class, all right, and we have 95%, well, then we have the upper 5%. There's an award for being in the upper 5% of that class, right? Well, congratulations to us because we have several outstanding people in that upper 5% of the sucking fumes class.
Well, the levels, as I previously mentioned, these levels, we can't relate them to health effects. All we can see is that what the exposures are. And it's possible, we don't know exactly where exposures occur based on blood levels, but all we can say is that living here, based on this data, the exposure wasn't different than if you lived other places in the United States. So you might have the same health effects as someone else that was in Haines that lived somewhere else.
I just want to clarify one thing, and I don't want to be at odds with my citizenry, but I'm not going to support you coming back and doing testing unless you do the tentatively identified compounds and unless you do air sampling in this area when you're out here. I just want you to know that so you can get started on that if you would like. But I will not support you coming out here to do the same thing again, take a bunch of samples, say yes, there's some readings, but we don't know where it comes from. We're going to pinpoint it, and you're going to take some input from a scientist who's nationally recognized.
We could probably do the air monitoring if we start planning ahead, but the lab that we're going to use, we'll use the same lab again because it's the best lab in the country, and they will not report tentatively identified compounds.
We need to do tentatively identified compounds, or we need to look at other sources to get our testing done, because we're going to end up with the exact same thing. If it's, please.
This is all unnecessary because all it would take is best practices, industry following best practices, and we wouldn't have this problem. They can take care of the noise, they can use electric motors and cut down on the compressor fumes. They can use vapor recovery devices, pneumatic seals, and valves, but they won't do that because of the money. And because we keep having these flawed studies that say that there's nothing wrong. But this is all preventable. These people should not have to smell odors, even if they're harmless, which they're not harmless, they're toxins. It can all be prevented.
You'd have to work with the TCQ on that. We don't have regulatory authority over the gas
I
wells.
wouldn't ask you.
Hi, my name is Amber Smith, and I'm a dish president. I was looking on page 33 of the final investigation, and I noticed it said that due to failed quality control in the laboratory, there are no results for 5 samples of one of the VOCs. This is the water. One of those is mine. I'd kind of like to know what that is.
This is her water, just so you know, and you said it was fine.
Based on the sample that we collected that day, there weren't any compounds. Now, there's nothing we can do if the lab analyzed the sample and for some reason the sample was somehow destroyed and could not be analyzed. That was out of our control.
Best lab in the country.
But there are errors with the quality assurance, and again, if the quality assurance is not accurate, then they won't report the data to us.
Okay, does anybody else have any more questions? I'll go one more time up here. I think you guys see the level of frustration that we have here, and what we've been looking for is some relief. I'll be frank with you, probably when you showed up, I was probably a little rough around the edges, because as soon as I told the populace at whole that I was going to have the state health department come and do testing, they said, don't do that. You will not get a valid study. You will get something that covers the backside of the industry. I'm not saying that that's what you did, but certainly that's one of the perceptions I think that's floating around. All of this may be for nil, because we are getting better. I don't know that I believe that this study proves one thing or the other. I don't know that it proves that it's bad. I don't know that it proves that it's good. Maybe that was by design. I don't know. But what I do know is that that the air quality is getting better. The readings are getting lower. Of course, we're going to do some parallel testing to ensure that that level stays there. I would reach out to every single person in this community who had your blood samples taken, who had your biological testing done, to mark out your names and give me that data. I have made some contacts for some very reputable universities across the United States, and maybe we'll get a second opinion on what we had. Maybe we do need more testing. Maybe we need to get some universities involved in that. Maybe the state health department is not the group that we need to do that testing. I don't know. Like I said, I would urge no one to support them if they're not going to do tentatively identified compounds and pinpoint the source of this exposure. And so, having said that, I don't think I have anything else. I do, but we'll just let it end on that. If would you like to say any closing remarks?
No.
All right. Well, again, I do thank you for coming out, and I do thank your efforts, and I do thank you for coming here and putting yourself in front of the citizens that are very frustrated.
And if
Thank you.
the only thing I would add is if you have any other questions, please feel free to contact me. I'll be more than willing to talk with you.
Meeting adjourned.